Yes, time for emerging issues. Welcome to our YouTube audience here. We are looking at Humphrey Dumpty. Had a great fall. Now, of course, B, what we're referring to is Jamie Humphreys goes off with a hamstring after 2 minutes, scoring one, and loses 15k. Probably going to be out for quite some time, and as a result, it's going to mean coaches will need to make a trade.
Yeah, and I think, we used to have the rule like if they're only out for 2 weeks and they're keepers, you hold them. But I think because of how cheap we got him, I think even a 2 week injury is still a sell because his price is just going to plummet from scoring this one. I do think it's going to update to two, so that extra 1,000 might help. But yeah, it's going to be getting off the hump guns train and replacing him with a player that you can use to have depth in your squad.
Yeah, so let's have a look into that. Of course, the situation facing coaches this week is it'll be 635k. He will have a 1 or potentially a 2 in his rolling average. So just keep that in mind that his price won't move very quickly upwards if he does come back in a short period of time. Half's position is thinning out a little bit. We had some coaches that decided to sell Nathan Cleary. I believe that Rowie might have been in that mix from our stable. The round 12 numbers for a lot of coaches, I've seen that mentioned that those are quite low for a lot of coaches, so that's something to be aware of. And then got the Bulldogs on the bye in round 6, so probably not the most fantasy relevant team this year, so most people should have plenty of green dots this week. So, but let's have a look at the paths that coaches might go into. Now we've got round 12 eligible halves that we can have a look at. Fallen Guns, potentially boosting up with JC's half winger fullback, dual position, and as well as chasing the coin. But let's get to the round 12 halves here, mate. I know you've got some thoughts on these. Obviously, Nicho Hynes, Jamal Fogarty, Dylan Brown, and Isaiah Cartel in the mix here. Is there any of these four that really snake your eye?
You're going to ruin what my potential trades are going to be. But look, one of these halves is definitely in my sights, and I won't give that one away. But I think it's one that's a perfect pivot point who's going to play in round 12 because, again, that's the first buy round that you want to start planning for. And this player has just the base stats that I like in a half, who I was very high on in the preseason as well. So yeah, that player will be one that I'm going to bring in. But I think two of these are great options. One of them's a no go, and one's a wait and see a week.
Yeah, no, you make a really good point there. Now, Jamal Fogarty is probably the guy that I think will probably be the most popular this week because the Raiders don't have a bye till round 15. So, like you said, not only is your round 12 half slot locked in, you've also then got one there for round 13 when you might be relying on Origin players resting. You might have some Bulldogs Seagulls that will be on the bye at that point. So, he'll be popular. Isaiah Katoa's a pretty fun one here, mate. Now, I know I'm pretty interested in getting him just more from the element of fun because he's got 50 average so far this season without really doing an awful lot in attacking stats. Do you think there's merit in going for a guy like him, or do you think maybe the round 13 buy might be a bit too scary?
No, I love it. I really do because look, at the end of the day, we've all got Nathan Cleary. You're going to probably have a different half as well, and you're going to have Jaden Campbell. But on top of that, you got to think about all the other wing fullbacks and centers that we have. Excuse me, that have got the DPP. So like your Tamales, your Jenkins, all Ruben Garrix, like all these guys who can go and fill the wing of fullback, so Jaden Campbell can go up. So I still think the round 13 buy is fine to cover, and you look at Katoa's score, the lowest he's got is a 49, and he's done it twice, and a 50 once. Dominates the kick meters. He didn't have as many in this game, which we'll obviously go to in the Dolphins portion, but still pulled out a 50. So I think from a fun perspective, like he's probably got 40 to 50 grand to make, and he's got a great buy schedule. So I don't mind as a pod.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's got a revenge game next week against the Panthers. I'll actually be in attendance for that one. But yeah, I think he's going to be a fun option. Now, Nicho Hynes, probably a year ago, 2 years ago, with a clear and obvious option here, but bit of shaky scoring, not dominating the kick meters. He does have the goal kicking. Where do you sit on Hynes? Do you think he's an option that coaches could have a look at if they've got a little bit of cash in the bank?
I wouldn't touch Hines unless he had a 6 in his price, in front of his price. You have a look at his scores. He's got a 64 and a 74 in there, but then 3 scores in the 40s. And this was his equal worst game where he kicked 4 goals. He also had really good run meters in this game. He's not setting up the tries, and there's too much shared responsibility with Braden Trindle. So I don't like this. If anything, he's actually the one I'd probably like the least out of all 4 of these.
That's really interesting because I thought Maybe Dylan Brown will be the least favourite for you. Like, obviously, got the 81 this week. He'll be about 580k coming into round 6. And we're starting to see him run the footy a bit more. Now, we know Moses isn't too far away. Do we think potentially the Eels might have turned a corner? And if you have a bit of an inkling that Brown might actually keep running the footy and get over 100 metres with the ball in hand, that is a nice little discount option there?
Yeah, well, that's why I put him above Hines, is because you're going to get him like 180 grand cheaper. And they've both got just the potential of just being that 50 scorer. I've actually never owned Dylan Brown because anytime I have a Parramatta half to pick, I always pick Moses. But he filled the stat sheet. And again, we'll go into it in the Parramatta section. But I liked what I saw with his running game. It was like he almost had a point to prove. He plays that round 12. But that's a decision you have to make next week because his price is going to go up about 30 grand this week.
Yep, and then you've got that buy there in round 8 for the Eels. Let's move to the next one. Fallen Guns. Now, we've got 3 key ones here because they were some of the best scorers last year. Isaiah Yeo goes without saying he's going to be just maybe a touch under 800k, so still a nice price for those that want a season-long keeper that'll average 60 plus. Jerome Hughes coming back from that hand injury, got a bit of a rest. As Bellamy rested the Ferrari this week, he'll continue to drop in price, might even get into the 600s in a couple of weeks. And Dave Fafita got the start, might just be because of his cousin Jojo Fafita being unavailable this week. But mate, if Fafita was named to start this week, would you be against anyone moving Humphreys on basically for a straight swap to David Fafita?
No, wouldn't be against it whatsoever. Me personally, I would like to see another week of what his minutes are like because he, excuse me, he only got a few extra minutes in this one, but he just started. He didn't come on at the 20-minute mark. He started and then went off. So I'd like to see a 70 to 80-minute performance from him. But I think even at what's he priced at the moment? Like 640 or something like that, he will be. So I don't mind it whatsoever as a straight swap. If your squad balance is there, like me personally, because I've got plans to sell Jack Cole and sell Sandon Smith in a while, like when he's peaked as well, I'm going to need a half. But I've got Couchman, I've got Hopgood, I'm going to have Dylan Egan, I'm going to have Seyfarth there. I've got Katoga. Like, there's so many edges that you can just plug and play there. And I think we're going to run thin on halves, but kind of waffling on there a little bit. But at point blank, Fafita's going to be good.
Yes, breaking news. David Fafita will be good. Out of these 3, though, mate, if a coach did have the ability to go to any of these players in one trade, where would you be directing them?
Isaiah Yeo, because he's only had one off game, and the rest of the games he's doing exactly what it says on the tin. You're getting him at he started 870, so you're going to be getting him at an 80 grand on discount. He's still proving that he's doing it. With Jerome Hughes, I always felt like he only performed hugely when Munster was injured. Other than that, I only see him as a high 40s, low 50s player. And Dave Fafita, we still don't know what the minutes are like. So if you're going to go for one out of these 3, it's Isaiah Yeo, hands down.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing with the Panthers' bye schedule this season, round 11 means they have a 17-day break between their round 10 game against the Cowboys and game 1 of Origin, which would then mean good outcomes for the backups, potentials in rounds 13, 16 and 19. Ironically, 2 of those against Parramatta. Not too sure how Parramatta paid off the draw to get that for them. But I still think he's a fantastic option. Let's roll to the next one where maybe one of these players is generous to be on here, but we're talking about Jaden Campbell owners with their half-winger fullback duel, maybe looking at just beefing up with a gun winger fullback now. We've got James Tedesco, who looks outstanding and might play Origin, maybe not. Scott Drinkwater, again, still looking pretty good, unlikely to play Origin. Reece Walsh, he is dirt cheap at the moment, and that neg 1 will come out of his rolling average this week. And I think for this beef, if we had coaches that were going to do this, they probably needed to start with maybe a third decently priced half along with Cleary and Humphreys.
Yeah, I think so. But look, again, if you're going up with I'll just run Jaden Campbell, on my bench as half cover and happy to keep it that way with plans to get a half later on when you trade out Sandon Smith or whatever, then this is actually a viable option. I love James Tedesco. He's been one of my favourite players since he came into grade. So out of these 3, he's the only one of them that I would touch. Reece Walsh scored a 31 while kicking goals. So he hasn't shown us anything, and Drinkwater just scares me a little bit too much as well for just how he's got the low games as well as the highs. So yeah, I don't mind this option as long as you've got squad depth and you've got a plan to have squad depth.
Yeah. Now with Teddy, obviously, I'm very keen on the way he's playing this season as well, getting trialist 50 plus scores. Is there a concern that Dylan Edwards has had such an interrupted start to the season? New coach for New South Wales and Laurie Daly, that Tedesco, being the former New South Wales captain, might jump him in the pecking order, no pun intended, and take that Blues jersey back?
There's 100% a chance that happens because look how Teddy's playing. Like, yeah, the Roosters aren't winning, but it's not because of him. Like, he's playing outstanding, and it's probably one of the reasons I've had him in trade ideas for the last 2 weeks straight to bring him in. Because and that was the thought, that he will not play Origin and he'll have the 3 major buys. I love how that is. But there's just that scare that he's going to play Origin and then all of a sudden you're trading him out. And I don't like that too much. So hence why I'm going a gun half instead.
Yeah, for sure. I think I've got the same opinion there. Let's move to the next one where we've got some cash cows. Now, of course, Siwa Wong's probably nearly going to be 600k, so potentially not a cash cow, but a guy that might rise in value very, very quickly. Dylan Egan again, great 50 minutes off the bench from him. A bit of extra time in there, and as well, of course, Tommy Jenkins, our saviour last week, they got us Payne Haas. Now, imagine where these guys, again, it depends on their positional coverage. Wong's the interesting one here, mate, because, he's going to springboard off an 87 into the 600s very, very quickly, potentially the 700s. Is he still in the range of strike, or do you think you've kind of missed the boat now that he's gone from mid 300s to almost 600k?
Yeah, it's a bit of a hard one to answer because it's, at the end of the day, it's what your eye test tells you. Like, my eye test tells me that he's going to potentially be a keeper edge. So if he's going to be a keeper edge, then you're technically getting him at a discount, right? So I did, for my trades this week, I brought in Toby Couchman at similar thing, 600 grand. Think he can be a 700 grand player, which is only a 52 average. That's all he needs to do. I think Wong can do that. So, technically, I think you're getting him at 100 grand discount with what he's putting out right now.
Yeah, he's looked really, really good, really, really strong. And the way that the Roosters keep getting forward pack injuries, he'll probably just keep playing those big minutes and get the good scores. So, yeah, these guys are all still great options, and I think there's still value to be had in all of them among some of the other cheapies. But that basically wraps up emerging issues. And I think the thing that we want to take home for this one, especially first edition of emerging issues and the fantasy game plan since TK's retirement was formally announced, is look, you want to act fast on this one, quickly move on Humphreys to another player, but just have a bit of fun with it. If you do want to pick a player because they play for your favourite team, or potentially the way I might look at it, being a Dolphin season ticket, or pick up a player that you actually watch play live a bit, don't panic. I think most of the options we're talking about here are going to be pretty good ones.
Well, exactly right. And at the end of the day, like, a lot of people are in that kind of congested big ranks anyway. So maybe a pod is what you need to make it fun, make it a bit more interesting, which is how I plan to do it this week. At the end of the day, my rank isn't that great. So let's go have some fun with it. Let's go pick players that we like watching, who, smart plays as well. Don't just like pick, I like watching Cameron Munster, which he doesn't have the buy schedule we want, could go to Origin, so on and so forth. Make an educated decision, but if it comes to a tiebreaker, pick the player you like.
Yeah, certainly a way to go about it. Now, that wraps up the YouTube edition here of Emerging Issues. Thanks for joining us. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe and check out the full podcast on your preferred podcast platform.